The 26 Baku Commissars were Bolshevik and left Socialist revolutionary members of the Baku Soviet Commune. The Commune was established in the city of Baku, which was then the capital of the briefly independent Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, and is now the capital of the Republic of Azerbaijan. The Commune, led by Stepan Shahumyan, existed until the 26th of July 1918, when the Bolsheviks were forced out of power by a coalition of Dashnaks, right SRs, and Mensheviks. After their overthrow, the Baku Commissars attempted to leave Baku but were captured by the Centrocaspian Dictatorship and imprisoned. On the 14th of September 1918, during the fall of Baku to Ottoman forces, Red Army soldiers broke into the prison and freed the Commissars. They then boarded a ship to Krasnovodsk, where they were promptly arrested by local authorities and, on the night of the 20th of September 1918, executed by a firing squad between the stations of Pereval and Akhchakama on the Trans-Caspian Railway. Baku Commune. The Baku Commune, a short-lived political entity, lasted from the 13th of April to the 25th of July 1918. It came to power after the bloody confrontation with the Muslim population, known as the March Days in Baku. During its brief existence, the Commune had to face several problems, from the shortage of food and supplies to the threat of a strong Ottoman Empire army which wanted to attack Baku. Despite the difficult conditions, the Commune carried out several social reforms, such as the nationalization of the oil industry. The nationalization process was simple. They were secured private property by military means, claiming it in the name of revolution, which was justified by the Lenin's words which stated that, for the revolution there are no laws. This is how the writer Victor Serge described the situation in May, June and July and the state of the small Red Army of Baku. On the 5th of June 1918, the Baku Red Army repulsed an assault by overwhelming Ottoman troops, but later it launched an unsuccessful assault on Ganja, the headquarters of the Ottoman Army of Islam, and was obliged to retreat to Baku. At this point, Dashnaks, right SRs and Mensheviks started to negotiate with General Dunstaville, the commander of the British troops in Persia, inviting his troops to Baku in order to defend the city from an imminent Ottoman attack. The Bolsheviks and their leftist allies opposed this scheme, but on the 25th of July the majority of the Soviet voted to call in the British, and the Bolsheviks resigned. The Baku Commune was imprisoned for participation in unlawful military formations and militarized robbery, particularly for the March Days atrocities, and was replaced by the Centrocaspian Dictatorship, in contrast to what happened in many parts of Russia, where the Bolsheviks earned a reputation for ruthlessness, executing those who did not support them. The Bolsheviks of Baku were not so strict. The Cheka in Baku executed only 2 persons, both members of the Soviet court, in embezzling public funds: the Commissar for Finance, Alexander Kirev, and the Commissar of the steamship Mev, Sergei Pokrovsky. The executions. Official Soviet version. After the fall of the Baku Soviet in July 1918, the Bolshevik leaders and some loyal troops tried to reach Astrakhan, the only Caspian port still in Bolshevik hands. However, their ship was intercepted by the military vessels of the Caspian Fleet, and after undergoing an hour's bombardment in mid-sea they surrendered and returned to Baku. Most of the Bolshevik militants were arrested and remained in prison until, after the fall of Baku to the Turks, a commando unit led by Anastas Mikoyan freed them from the prison. Shahumyan.The operator Azizbekov and the comrades, along with Mikoyan, then boarded the ship Turkmen, intending to reach Astrakhan by sea. According to recent historians, the sailors chose instead to sail to Krasnovosk for fear of being arrested in Astrakhan. At Krasnovosk, the commissars were arrested by the town's commandant, who requested further orders from the Ashgabat Committee, led by the Socialist Revolutionary Fyodor Funtikov, about what should be done with them. 3 days later, British Major General Wilfred Malleson, on hearing of their arrest, contacted Britain's liaison officer in Ashgabat, Captain Reginald Teague Jones, to suggest that the commissars be handed over to British forces to be used as hostages in exchange for British citizens held by the Soviets. That same day, Teague Jones attended the committee's meeting in Ashgabat, which had the task of deciding the fate of the commissars. For some reason, Teague Jones did not communicate Malleson's request to the committee and claimed he left before a decision was made. He further claimed that next day he discovered the committee had eventually decided to issue orders that the commissars should be executed. According to historian Richard H. Ullman, Teague Jones could have stopped the executions if he wanted, since the Ashgabat Committee was dependent on British support and could not refuse a request from its powerful ally. But he decided not to do so. On the night of the 20th of September, 3 days after being arrested, 26 of the commissars were executed by a firing squad between the stations of Pereval and Akhchakama on the Trans-Caspian Railway. How Anastas Mikoyan, who was part of the group, managed to survive is still uncertain, as is the reason why his life was spared. In 1922, V. Chaikin, a socialist revolutionary journalist, published a description of the moments before the execution. Alternative version: during the evacuation of Baku with the advancing Ottoman forces, the deputy from the Bolshevik faction, Anastas Mikoyan, by means of threats requested the release of the Baku Commune members for conducting investigations and court trials over the arrested in Astrakhan, where the evacuation was directed. On the way to Astrakhan, a crew of the steamship led by naval officers changed course to the city of Petrovsk that was held by the White forces. At the time, all 27 commissars mixed with the other 600 refugees. On arrival at Petrovsk during the passport checks conducted by military counter-espionage officials, Mikoyan was caught for unlawful possession of a weapon and placed in an investigatory cell for temporary detention. The Chief of Staff of General L. Bykarikov's garrison, simultaneously the chief of the counter-espionage team, Major General Alexei Martinov, during interrogations offered Anastas Mikoyan a deal, his life, for assistance in selecting from the refugees all the commissars. Thanks to the help of Mikoyan, all the commissars were detained and brought to court. Upon completion of the investigation, all 26 members were sentenced to death by firing squad, while Mikoyan was released on condition that he did not engage in anti-government activities. According to General Alexei Yevgenovich Martinov, of all the detainees, he was the worst scum. We should have dealt with him too, but I gave him my officer's word to spare his life. Impact. Soviet officials later blamed the executions on British agents acting in the Baku area at the time. When Soviet rule was established in the whole Caspian area, Funtikov, the head of the Ashgabat Directorate responsible for the executions, was imprisoned. Funtikov put all blame for the executions onto Britain, and in particular Teague Jones, who, he claimed, had ordered him to have the commissars shot. Funtikov was tried and shot in Baku in 1926. Britain denied involvement in the incident, saying it was done by local officials without any knowledge of the British. This accusation caused a further souring of relations between Britain and the fledgling Soviet government and helped lead to the confrontational attitude of both sides in the coming years. According to Soviet historiography, 2 British officers on board the Commissars ship ordered it to sail to Krasnovodsk instead of Astrakhan, where they found a government led by Hussars and British officers who immediately ordered the arrest of the Commissars. The Soviets would later immortalize the death of the 26 Commissars through, among other things, movies, artwork, stamps, and public works, including the 26 Commissars Memorial in Baku. In Isaac Brodsky's famous painting, British officers are depicted as being present at the executions. Soviet investigations. Boris Vladimirovich Sennikov published a book in 2004 about his findings on the Tambov Rebellion, where he mentioned several facts about the event. Sennikov claims that the famous Brodsky's painting is an invention of the Soviet historiography. The truth was established by the Special Commission of the All-Russian Central Executive Committee that arrived from Moscow. The commission was headed by Vadim Chaikin. The commission also consisted of a big group of high-ranking Moscow's Cheka officers headed by Yakov Peters, an international criminal associated with the siege of Sydney Street. Sennikov also brings up a quote of Chaikin in the article of Shuran Gazarian that should not be repeated in the Leningrad magazine Zvezda. The painting of Brodsky execution of the 26 Baku Commissars is historically false. They were not shot but rather decapitated, and the executioner of the penalty was a single man, a Turkmen, a gigantic strength Bergata. The Turkmen by himself with his own hands using shashka beheaded all of them. The pit with remains of the commissars and the heads was uncovered under the surveillance of the VTSIK Special Commission and representatives of Cheka. The report on the death of Baku Commissars was sent by the Commission to VTSIK, Sovnarkom, and the Central Committee of RKP. In 1922, Vadim Chaikin published his book To the History of the Russian Revolution through the Grazdin Publishing, commemorating the first part, execution of 26 Baku Commissars, to the event. After serving time in the Oryol prison Chaikin on the 11th of September 1941, he was executed by a firing squad along with 156 other Oryol prison inmates. During the Medvedev Forest massacre, the commissars, the 26 Baku Commissars, were not all commissars and were not all Bolsheviks. Some of them were left Hussars in Dashnaks. There were many nationalities among them: Greek, Latvian, Jewish, Russian, Georgian, Armenian and Azerbaijani. The 26 commissars were Stepan Shahumyan, chairman of the Baku Council of the People's Commissars, Commissar Extraordinary for the Caucasus; Meshadi Azizbekov, Deputy People's Commissar of Internal Affairs; Gubernial Commissar for Baku; Prokopius Zaporizhzhia, chairman of the Executive Committee of the Baku Soviet; Ivan Fioletov, chairman of the Soviet of National Economy; Mir Hassan Vazarov, People's Commissar for Agriculture; Grigory Korganov, People's Commissar for Military and Navy Affairs; Jakov Zevin, People's Commissar for Labor; Grigory Petrov, Military Commissar of the Baku region from the Sovnarkom of the Russian SFSR; Ivan Maligan, Deputy Chairman of the Military Revolutionary Committee of the Caucasian Army; Arsen Amiryan, Chief Editor of Baku Worker newspaper; Mayor Vilkovich Basin, Member of the Military Revolutionary Committee; Shuran Ozpian, Chief Editor of Izvestia of the Baku Council newspaper; Izhenberg, Sailor; Vladimir Polukhin, Collegiate Commissar for Military and Navy Affairs of the Russian SFSR; Fyodor Solnzyev, Member of the Military; Armenik Boryan, Journalist; Ivan Gabishev, Political Commissar of a Brigade; Mark Koganov, Member of the Military Revolutionary Committee; Bagdasar Avakian, military commandant of Baku, Irakli Mensheviks Shahumyan's bodyguard, Ivan Niklishvili, Zaporizhzhia's bodyguard, Aram Kostandyun, Deputy People's Commissar for Agriculture, Solomon Bogdanov, member of the Military Revolutionary Committee, Anatoly Bogdanov, clerk, Izzy Mishny, secretary of the Military Revolutionary Committee, Tatovos Amirov, commander of a cavalry unit, member of Dashnaks. Demolition of the 26 Commissars Memorial and reburial. In January 2009, the Baku authorities began the demolition of the city's 26 Commissars Memorial. This was the latest monument of several that had been built to commemorate the commissars erected in the park during the Soviet period. This last monument itself had been fenced off since July 2008. The remains of the commissars were reburied at Hovsan Cemetery on 26 January 2009, with participation of Muslim, Jewish and Christian clergy, who conducted religious ceremonies. The dismantling was opposed by some local left-wingers and by the Azerbaijan Communist Party in particular. It also upset Armenia, as the Armenian public believed that the demolition and reburial was motivated by the reluctance of the Azerbaijanis, after the Nagorno-Karabakh war, to have ethnic Armenians buried in the center of the capital. Another scandal happened when Azerbaijani press reports claimed that during the exhumation only 21 bodies were discovered and that Shahumyan and 4 other Armenian commissars managed to escape the murderers. This report was questioned by Shahumyan's granddaughter Tatyana, now living in Moscow, who told the Russian daily Kommersant that it is impossible to believe that they weren't all buried. There is a film in the archives of 26 bodies being buried. Apart from this, my grandmother was present at the reburial. Almost all monuments in Azerbaijan dedicated to the commissars, including Shahumyan, Azizbekov-D, Zaporizhzhia and Fioletov, have been demolished. Most streets named after the commissars have been changed as well. Trivia: Russian prominent poet Sergei Yesenin wrote Ballad of the 26 to commemorate the Baku Commissars, poem first published in the Baku Worga, the 22nd of September 1925. Russian alternative music band Wamba named one of its albums the 27th Baku Commissar. Italian prominent writer Tiziano Terzani wrote about the Baku Commissars in his book Buonanotte, Signor Lenin.